Hello, English 410. This is Alexia Clombies, and I'm here today at the very end of our reading week to talk about Puttenham, because that's exciting, and that's what we're doing on Tuesday, so you had better have read it. Um, I'm going to give you my best interpretation of what's happening in these incredibly long sentences. If you have a different opinion, I really would love to hear it. Let me know. Comment section down below. Or tell me on Facebook, class, whatevs. I'd like to know. You should let me know. So here we go. Ornamenting both disguises a lady's and poesy's ordinary nature, and makes them more agreeable to the civil ear or eye. Honorable ladies would even leave our sight, just like poetry, if they were not properly enhanced and adorned, as this artificial handling yields much more beauty and commendation than nature and ugly nakedness. Figures and figurative speeches, which he'll talk to us more about in later chapters. Figures and figurative speeches are to poesy as colors and flowers are to ladies, and if they are not properly chosen, balanced, and placed, or if they are used in excess, the effect is disfiguring and graceless. When the figures and figurative speeches in poesy are not properly chosen, balanced, and placed, it's kind of like when you have a lady, and by some accident or another, she's managed to get her crimson lip taint in her face, kind of in a weird way. He says that at best it makes for a very ridiculous beauty. Want to know how I got these scars? Overusing figures and figurative speeches. Moving on. Chapter 7 is dedicated to figures and figurative speeches, that is, any language which is neither obvious nor ordinary in its execution. Though poesy is naturally deceptive, it pleaded only pleasant and lovely causes when Puttenham was writing. Its purpose was to provide solace mostly to meek and pleasant persons, and so despite the natural deceptiveness of figures and figurative speech, they should be commended as virtues of the poetical science rather than as vices. Puttenham again advises poets to avoid using figures and figurative speeches in excess. It's everywhere. Lest the poet become blameworthy, and their flowers and colors become vices. Chapter 10. In this chapter, Puttenham is expanding upon the notion of figures. He wants to provide the three categories that he's going to be using. First, we have the auditory or orthographical sort of figure, which is the resource of poets. Auditory figures alter the sound of an utterance, whether it is a single word, a clause, a sentence, or the whole poem. These alterations are only made in order to grant pleasant sweetness to the sound of the poesy, reaching the ear, but not the imagination of its audience. He briefly mentions the second and third figures, which he'll expand upon in later chapters. The second rank of figure is the sensible, or syntactical, and engages only the imagination, and not the ear, while the third and final rank of figure is sententious, or rhetorical, and engages both. Chapter 19! So chapter 19 is an expansion on those sententious figures. In chapter 10, Puttenham had said that the academics who originally created these three categories bestowed the use of the first and second figures upon the poet, and the second and third figures upon the orator. Puttenham doesn't like that the poet doesn't get to use all three, so he skirts this issue by pointing out that poets are the most ancient of orators, and therefore they possess the ability to use all three ranks of figures. Sententious or rhetorical figures beautify and give sense to language, and can be used by the poet to plead, praise, or advise in a sweet, melodic manner. Convincing is one of the aims of the poet, according to Puttenham, and he instructs poets that making a deep impression and vanquishing a mind requires a multitude of words to the direct purpose of persuasion. Damn it, this isn't coming off. In conclusion, Puttenham urges the poet to avoid superfluous and meager persuasions alike, and employ repetition of a word or a clause in one of the many ways available to them. So, English 410, let me know if you think that Puttenham was a good teacher for novice poets, and whether or not you think that you might be guilty of overusing figures and figurative speeches, or underusing. Thank you so much for watching. This is Alexia Clumbies for English for 10, and I'll see you on Tuesday.
Puttenham, can we trust him?
Oh my god, that took ages.